Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, general ages, we are back. This is Championship Rings. This is October 3rd, 2023. Brandon Lewis, Josh Ungar, Ungar to the Max here with you. We were not here with you last week. We both had separate issues going on. I just got back from traveling from, may I dare say, the beautiful, the wonderful state of Colorado. Oh, the mountains are so beautiful out there. I'm glad to be back. Josh, how's it go? We have a major show to get to tonight.
Yes, we do. I actually, at the end of this month, I'm headed to the Pacific Northwest. I will be going to the Trailblazers home opener against the Orlando Magic, and then I am headed up to Seattle, and I am going to see Deshaun Watson, Amari Cooper, Myles Garrett, and those Cleveland Browns go up against Geno Smith, Kenneth Walker, Devin Witherspoon, Jackson Smith and Jigba, DK Metcalf, and the Seattle Seahawks. You have no freaking idea how excited I am to get up to Seattle to see my two favorite teams in all of the NFL go at it for that game. I can't wait.
Should I say your Seattle Seahawks? You tried to talk me into them all off season. We're going to get to everything NFL, but we have to start. There's no better place to start with. As of last Wednesday, bombshell news broke about 3 p.m. Eastern time. Damian Lillard, who was rumored, of course, to go to the Miami Heat for months, he wasn't going to the Heat. He ended up going to the Milwaukee Bucks in a huge deal that, of course, involved DeAndre Ayton going from Phoenix to Portland, and Phoenix getting some bench pieces. And then a couple days later, Jrue Holiday, which was involved in that deal, he ends up going to Boston as Portland now with Scoot Henderson accelerates their rebuild with the young kids. Boston and Milwaukee now seemingly seem to be the class of the Eastern Conference. So first question for you, Josh. First question I'm going to ask in about 2 weeks here. We have a very tight show, a lot to get to today, but we're starting it off with, who is your number one team in the East? The Milwaukee Bucks, led by Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo, or the Boston Celtics, led by Jason Tatum, newest addition Jrue Holiday, and one Jaylen Brown?
I got to go with the Milwaukee Bucks on this one because I love the addition of Dame because now defenses can't make that wall to stop Giannis from going downhill, because if you do that, bang, right out to Damian Lillard for the three-pointer. And think about this. The only real size the Boston Celtics have now is a 7'3" guy who, can he really stay healthy? We haven't seen that from Porzingis. Whereas the Milwaukee Bucks, they've got Brook Lopez, Bobby Portis coming off the bench. We cannot forget about him in this whole thing. He might be the X factor, actually. And, of course, Giannis. So, being that the Bucks have the size on their side, I would give Milwaukee the edge.
So this is going to be our first ever NBA topic on Championship Rings. And during the fall season, we won't talk a ton of NBA. Obviously, we will dive into all of the NBA trade deadline and the madness that happens February through June. But the one thing you will learn about me, Mr. Unger, if you do not already, what do I care about the most? I don't care about the regular season. I don't care if you score 80 points in a freaking basketball game in November. I don't care if you put up 72 in a basketball game in December. I care about what you do in the games, in the postseason, in the quarter with the game on the line. And ever since Giannis Antetokounmpo won that NBA championship against a bunch of chokers in the Phoenix Suns, let's just say Giannis has sort of flamed out in the postseason, especially last year. And I don't want to hear the injury excuse. The Milwaukee team was better than the Miami Heat. The Heat were just a better playoff team and had better chemistry. And as a matter of fact, when Giannis Antetokounmpo played, Milwaukee did not beat Miami. Their only win in that series was game 2 when Giannis did not play. Now they get a guy in Damian Lillard, who a lot of people want to put in that superstar category. I am not one of those people.
What?
Damian
Hold on a second.
Lillard
Are you kidding me?
Damian Lillard is not a superstar. How can you be a superstar in this league when you've never made an NBA Finals?
What?
It's ridiculous. He is not. He has a one's mind and a two's game. He does not make the shot. If he was that good, Portland would have made an NBA Finals. If he is that guy, which he is not that guy.
You have got to be kidding me right now.
Just like you think, oh, Jason Tatum's that guy. What has Jason Tatum ever done? Jaylen Brown's the better person on that squad because Jaylen Brown shows up when the game matters. It's all about what. It's all about when the game is on the line.
Wait a minute. Okay, go back to game 7. Go back to game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals from last year. Jason Tatum gets hurt.
He didn't show up. He didn't show up like he always does.
What?
They got blown out of the gym
because the complexion of that game changed.
Oh, he got hurt. Baloney, he got hurt.
Are you kidding me?
Baloney.
You're ridiculous. But anyway, getting back to this. Yes, Damian Lillard is absolutely a superstar.
By what measure? But he's never made a finals in 10 years. He's made one Western Conference final.
Okay, guess what? Before Dirk Nowitzki, he went to the finals, but he hadn't won it until 2011. Guess what?
I wouldn't have classified Dirk as a superstar back then either. Even a really good player. Was he a superstar? No. There are only maybe 3 superstars in the whole league currently right now.
3?
3. That's it. Okay. The rest of them are stars.
Oh God, we're gonna get way off topic. But
Giannis, LeBron, and Steph.
What?
To me,
what?
Those are your 3 superstars. And Kevin Durant's on the fringe a little bit. Injury history. Don't trust him that much anymore in the postseason because he has not been the same since he left Golden State.
Dude, I'm trying not to jump through my computer screen right now. Okay.
What has Durant done the last 3 years but get hurt?
Dude, that doesn't matter.
And then quit. By the way, and then quits in Brooklyn. It absolutely matters.
He's still a freaking superstar. And how can you not include the freaking Joker as a superstar?
Jokic. I'll give you Jokic. He had to prove it to me in the finals. He wasn't on my list until he won the finals. He is now. So there's 4. Embiid was on my list. I knocked him off because he didn't trust Embiid anymore because Philly's a bunch of chokers. So he's gone. Kawhi Leonard would have been on that list. You can't trust him. He's always hurt. He's gone. There's about 4 reliable NBA players that I'm going to get that from this guy every single night. That's what a superstar is.
Okay. I can't. As much as I would love to put John Morant in there, I can't.
John Morant. By the way, Jamal Murray is better than Damian Lillard. I'm here to say it right now. Jamal Murray is absolutely a better player than Damian Lillard.
All right.
Did you see what Jamal Murray did in the He carried the Nuggets in that Lakers series.
Okay.
Remember when Jokic disappeared in game 2 and then Jamal Murray got 20 straight points? Remember game 3 when he had 30 in the first half?
Yes.
That's a superstar.
Okay, anyway. So with the Celtics and Bucks, you can put them in whatever order you want. Celtics or Bucks or Celtics. In this case,
no, you can't. The Bucks are better.
Okay,
I'm sorry. The Bucks are better.
Okay. Either way, they are the 2 clear-cut favorites in the Eastern Conference. I would say the Cavaliers are 3rd because I want to put the 76ers 3rd, but I don't know what's happening with the whole James Harden thing, so that just
I could agree with that, though. I don't trust the Cavs either. Their coaching staff is horrible. Their roster construction's not great either.
But my point,
obviously, we'll see how the bench improves. But and I don't buy the Knicks. I'm sorry, I just don't.
Okay, but my point though is, even if you have the Cavs 3rd over Philadelphia, it's still a pretty large gap between Boston and Milwaukee. They're in their own group. And then like if Boston and Milwaukee are here, Cleveland's like down here. It's that large of a gap.
The biggest question for me when it comes to Milwaukee, and it is a legitimate question, they did not get younger. And they had a lot of injuries last year. And as good as Damian Lillard is, they lose a little bit on the defensive end with Jrue Holiday. And I actually still think the key to this Milwaukee team is a guy that me or you have not mentioned yet. You talked about Bobby Portis, Brook Lopez. I agree with you on that. But you know who actually, in my opinion, was the biggest part of Milwaukee winning the 2021 NBA championship? It wasn't Giannis. It wasn't Jrue Holiday. It was the guy who made clutch shot after clutch shot
Middleton.
in the finals.
Middleton.
Middleton. And
okay.
I'm
not glad
healthy,
you brought this up.
Milwaukee is not the same team.
I'm so glad you brought this up because I will say this. I get it. Until Giannis dropped that 50-point game in Game 6, Middleton, to me, was the
MVP of the finals, and I agree with you.
Yes, because Giannis had that clutch alley-oop in Game 5. I'll give him that, and he ended up having the 50-point game. Sure, but like you said, who was it that was hitting those clutch shots for Milwaukee? It wasn't Giannis. It was Chris Middleton. So I'll give you that one.
And he has not been healthy for the last couple of years. Now, I will say this. I think Boston, they've had the same core for 4 or 5 years. There's been a lot of talk about blowing it up. What they actually did this offseason, if you think about it now, they substituted Marcus Smart. For as good as he was defensively, obviously he could have been a liability at some nights on the offensive end. They substituted him out for Jrue Holiday. And the biggest question for me was Boston was always, listen, as much as I criticize Jason Tatum sometimes for not being the guy when he has to be the guy, he's going to give you 20 to 25 points a night. Jaylen Brown's going to give you 20 to 25 points a night. You never knew where the other scoring was going to come from. Was it going to come from Smart? Was it going to come from Horford? Was it going to come from Grant Williams? Was it going to come from Derek White? You never knew. Now, in my opinion, you do know. It's going to come from Jrue Holiday, and I actually think that does give Boston a little bit of an advantage.
Sure, but the problem is, and I talked about this earlier, is that Boston, as part of the trade to get Jrue Holiday, they had to get rid of Robert Williams. And they traded Grant Williams earlier in the offseason to the Dallas Mavericks. That's a lot of size they lost.
Yeah.
Now they're going to be relying on Al Horford, who's getting up there in age, and Porzingis. Can he stay healthy? I don't know. Whereas Milwaukee, we've talked about it. They've got Brook Lopez, Bobby Portis, Giannis. Middleton's has some size to him.
And he's got, he's a long, lengthy wing. He's like 6'7", 6'8". So
yeah.
Bottom line of this discussion is I will put Damian Lillard in the superstar category if he pulls through and wins a championship this year and as the impact that we both believe he will have on Milwaukee. And by the way, I actually think it's a better fit than Miami.
Oh, yeah.
If I'm Dame, I'm absolutely happy about it. I know he had his sights set on Miami, but I've been saying this on Brand's World this past week. Miami lost 2 key elements to their rotation. Obviously, Struce going to our Cleveland Cavaliers, Gabe Vincent going to the Lakers. They are getting older. As great as Jimmy Butler was in the postseason, in my opinion, he melted down, and I praise Butler for the entire postseason until Game 3, Game 4, and Game 5 in the finals. So you never know what you're going to get from Miami. You don't know what you're going to get from Cleveland. The Knicks they're a team that can win a playoff series. They're not threatening to anybody. So I completely agree with you on that. We got to shift gears, though, Josh. We got to leave the NBA. We're on a very tight show today, so we're going to move on. We're talking biggest takeaways from the National Football League Week 4. Now, we were not on the air last week to discuss our thoughts of the week 3 games going into week 4. But just overall, what were your biggest takeaways from a bizarre week from Thursday to Sunday to last night? Just very strange, in my opinion, slate of games in week 4.
The Houston Texans, they absolutely got it right with C.J. Stroud.
Are we sure?
Yes.
Are you sure about that after 4 games?
Yes, I am 100% sure. The Houston Texans absolutely nailed it with C.J. Stroud. I like what they have at wide receiver too. Nico Collins, Tank Dell. They could be a dangerous team. I'm not, obviously not Super Bowl contender. I'm not saying that. But maybe not even playoffs. But they could be a dangerous team this season. I don't think you should, if you have the Texans on your schedule, do not take them lightly.
And I agree with that. I picked them to go 7-10. I picked the Colts to go at 8-9. I really like what I see out of Anthony Richardson and Shane Steichen in Indianapolis as well. My biggest takeaway is actually not about any of the specific games. I want to talk about something that I've talked about on this show week in and week out, and I want to give sort of 3 to 5 examples. And this again comes back to whether you have a star quarterback, whether you have a young quarterback, whether you have a middle of the road quarterback. It's defensive coaches making these bizarre decisions at the end of games. Let's start with the one that I was especially paying attention to. I couldn't believe it even came down to this. But Sam Howell, which, by the way, I predicted the Commanders would give my Philadelphia Eagles the fight of their lives in that Week 4 game in Philadelphia, because Washington matches up very well with my Eagles. Sam Howell decides to throw a touchdown pass on the last play of the game to Dotson on a play that should have never happened. I don't know how he got one-on-one coverage. I don't understand it. But Ron Rivera, Riverboat Ron, it was always known for going for 2 with the Carolina Panthers, decides to kick the field goal and go to overtime, which I'm like, thank my lucky stars, because he said his guys were tired. Are you kidding me? You have 2 yards to go down there and win the game. You're on the road. You're always a 9-point underdog. You haven't turned the ball over. Your offense has moved the ball up and down the field all day, except for about 2 drives in the third quarter. Philadelphia's pass rush is clearly winded because they're not getting home in the fourth quarter. You're a 9-point dog on the road with a chance to go steal the game. You absolutely have to go for it there and give your players an opportunity to win the game. Let's go to a different scenario real quick. Denver, Chicago.
Oh God.
This was an LOL game because this was a Bears-Broncos game to a T. Listen, obviously, Justin Fields, great first half, barely misses a throw, gets the 3 touchdowns, 2 to DJ Moore. Bears up 28-7. Denver rolls back, tie it at 28. But the Bears get down. It's going to be at like the 30 or so yard line, I believe. It's a 4th and 1 play with about 3 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. It's a tie game. It's a makeable field goal. And you're going to tell me, with a chance to take the lead with a defensive coach, Matt Eberflus, that's his specialty, that's his side of the ball, defense, they decide to go for it, the opposite of what Washington did. And by the way, not only did they go for it, they don't even put the ball in the hands of their best player. They hand it off to Khalil Herbert, who's as best an average running back, and Denver stuffs it. Then they end up kicking a field goal. Russell Wilson gets his first victory. Then we go to the Chargers, who are facing a backup quarterback. They don't have an offensive line. Aiden O'Connell's already been sacked 7 times in the game. Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa are having the games of their lives. And the Chargers, at their own 30-yard line, decide to run the brotherly shove, which, by the way, as we're clearly seeing in the NFL, only works because the Philadelphia Eagles just have a 600-pound squatting quarterback and the best offensive line in football. But what do I know? I don't know. I'm only an Eagles fan. So it's the decision of these defensive coaches. All 3 of them, in my opinion, completely wrong. And in 2 of the cases, costing their teams the game. We think Matt Eberflus is going to probably be fired now. Brandon Staley almost costing his team the game. Staley will probably be out at the end of the year, and I think there's a good chance Rivera gets moved out from Washington. So that's my biggest takeaway is, again, these defensive coaches tone deaf to the situation that you're in late in ball games.
Okay, let me counter with this. DeMeco Ryans. He was the defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers.
Yes, he was.
And look at what the Houston Texans are doing.
I'm completely now. By the way, I thought Houston had a lot of upgraded talent in the offseason. Like I just said, I thought I picked them to go 6-11, 7-10. I thought it would take more time. And again, back to the defense side of the ball. As great as Houston has been with DeMeco Ryans, I can go to that flip side of the game and say, Mike Tomlin, your quarterback, and I know he got hurt. He's probably not going to play this week against Baltimore. Kenny Pickett looks bad.
That's okay.
Bad.
That's not on Mike Tomlin.
How is it not on Mike Tomlin?
Matt Canada is
but
horrible.
Mike Tomlin hires him. He's the head coach. How is it not on Tomlin?
He's not the one designing the game plan.
Well, then hire a better offensive coordinator.
I know.
Did you hear what he said today? Oh, not at this time. We're not going to make any changes. They are the most predictable offense in football.
The only reason the Steelers won against the Browns in week 2 is because they got 2 defensive scores.
That and because the Browns decided once again, Stefanski decided to go ultimate conservative, not give Watson, who I give you was struggling in the game, but didn't give Deshaun Watson any empty sets to the goal line, a lot of free tight ends, run the football, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 8. By the way, it's what we criticize the Jets for doing the first 3 weeks with Zach Wilson. What do they do against the Chiefs? And it's a defensive coach in Robert Saleh. He finally told Nathaniel Hackett, just go let the kid freaking play it. I'll tell you what, Zach Wilson played better than freaking Kenny Pickett on Sunday.
I didn't watch the game because I was watching AEW Wrestle Dream.
I will tell you what, Zach Wilson had a pretty good freaking game, man. He made 3 great throws in the 3rd quarter where even the announcers are saying, whoa, there's not maybe 5 quarterbacks in the NFL that can make these bad. I mean, he literally for a drive or 2 looked like Aaron Rodgers. And I'm not kidding. And I've been very critical of Zach Wilson. The Jets, they could freaking play with Kansas City. The Pittsburgh offense we saw on Sunday couldn't play with me.
I mean, I did hear about the Chiefs-Jets game, and I watched highlights. Okay, how much money did Andy Reid and the Chiefs pay the refs? How much money?
Listen, you mean how much did Taylor Swift?
Yes. Either way, how much money did the Chiefs pay the refs?
Now, some of those, now this is, and I've always said this, and I'm going to preface this by saying Kansas City did get away with some calls. But the Jets also got away with some holding calls early that were not called. This is my issue, though, with the officiating. If you're not going to call it in the first quarter, so the same thing I said about the Super Bowl, which, by the way, it was an awfully similar holding call. They called on James Bradbury. They called on Sauce Gardner. I didn't think either one of them were defensive holding.
They weren't.
So it's the same criticism I have is officials late in games deciding to throw flags. And this one looks worse, by the way, because he throws it after the interception. So in my opinion, I just ask for officials to be consistent. They're going to miss calls. There's holding on every play. Listen, I saw the Eagles get away with some holding on Sunday. Washington got away with some holding. Everybody gets away with defensive holding and offensive holding, especially on the defensive lines. It's the egregious ones we expect them to call. And it's weird because there's some officials, and this is where I wish the NFL was a little more consistent. I understand every referee is going to call the game differently. But we have some games where, and Philadelphia was an example, there were very ticky-tack pass interference calls called in that game on Sunday. And then in the Jets game, once again, very ticky-tack calls down the field. And then there were some games where there were no calls that were even more egregious than the ones that were called in those 2 games.
Okay, fair. And then the final thing is, after dropping 70 points against the Denver Broncos. And we're all praising the Miami Dolphins. Oh, they're the best team in the NFL and all this and that. They go up to Buffalo and get hammered by Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. What a freaking turnaround.
So my takeaway is I'm actually not surprised by that. And I don't know why a lot of people are surprised by it either. I didn't understand the line on the game was only 3. Buffalo, going back to last year, has always played Miami well. They always beat Miami. They match up well with Miami. And the NFL only comes down to matchups. And Buffalo and New England, divisional opponents with defensive coaches. The one thing where you can give defensive coaches a little more credit, they can figure out the motion and the scheme of Miami. When you score 70 points one week, it is natural you're going to have a huge letdown the next week. So I'm not surprised Miami only scored 20 points. I'm more surprised by the fact that they gave up 48, because you look at this Dolphins defense, this is not what people are talking about. Remember, they gave up 34 to the Chargers. They almost let New England come back in week 2. Then they give up 48 to Buffalo last week. Like Vic Fangio, we all thought he was a great defensive hire. I think they're going to get better throughout the season. But right now, especially without Jalen Ramsey, maybe that's a bigger loss than we all initially had thought, just because Miami's secondary was still pretty good. They had some pieces. They are getting torn over the top in pass defense. I mean, there was the one play to Stephon Diggs where they just stopped tackling him, and he was still up, and he ran all the way to the end zone. So a lot of people are saying Miami's this, Miami's that. I think Miami is a classic September-October team. They are very finesse. They are very fast. But the one thing they have are players that are very injury-prone, not only quarterback, but at receiver. We already saw Jalen Waddle miss a game. I do not think the Miami track team offense is going to work when you get to November, December, January. And that's why I have Buffalo as the better team in the division.
Miami needs to get home field advantage in the AFC playoffs for their offense to work. If they have to go to Kansas City or to Buffalo or even to Baltimore, like in December, January, like what you were just saying, they could be in trouble. But yeah. Anything else?
Last note on this. Buffalo does go down to Miami week 18.
Okay.
That could be for the AFC East and probably for playoff seeding, whether somebody starts at home or on the road. We saw last year, I believe it was Miami and Buffalo. They put week 15 or week 16 in Buffalo. They met again in the wild card round in Buffalo. So worth keeping an eye on there. We got to stay with the NFL because, we were talking about a couple AFC teams there, but the AFC as a whole, some think is down this year. There is not an undefeated team in the AFC. There's only 2 undefeated teams in the whole NFL, and it's Philly and San Francisco. So in your mind, Josh, has the AFC lived up to the offseason that we were all saying the AFC is superior by far to the NFC?
I have to say no, because you've got Buffalo, Miami, Kansas City. We'll see if Jacksonville can put it together. Obviously Baltimore, but Cincinnati hasn't lived up to the bargain. The Browns, maybe, but they had a clunker last week against Baltimore. And then you look over in the NFC, you've got San Francisco and Philadelphia. You've got Detroit. You've got Dallas. Looks like Tampa Bay might be legit. I'm not 100% sure, but they're there. I feel like the NFC has a little more than the AFC.
So this is what talk shows do. Talk shows like us, talk shows that are on TV, talk shows that are on radio. This is what we do during 4 weeks of the NFL season. We kind of know what we have, but you'll learn my general rule in the NFL is if you have a good coach, you have a good quarterback, you're generally going to be fine. I may be the only person on the planet. I'm not worried about Cincinnati yet. I still think Cincinnati is going to be a very good team. They're going to be in there at the end. Whether that means division now at this point, because they're technically 3 games behind Baltimore, obviously losing the one in the division, plus the 2 games that are already back of them. I don't know. If Baltimore stays healthy, I said it going into the year, I thought Baltimore and Cincinnati were neck and neck. If Baltimore were to stay healthy, I could have seen them dethroning Cincinnati in the AFC North. I think the Browns are still going to be fine. I think they're going to win 8 or 9 games. That's right where I projected them to be. Miami and Buffalo are going to be somewhere around that 11-12 mark. I have a feeling that's right where we kind of projected them to be. Chargers are still going to win about 10 games, I believe. That's right where most people projected them to be. So I just think when it comes down to it, we are all looking at these teams are all beating each other up. And Kansas City has not looked spectacular every single week, no, but they're still winning games. This is what you get when you have a bunch of teams in one conference competing against another. Denver is still bad as last year. I did not expect that. I thought they would be better than last year. I think the 2 biggest surprises, and let's take away Aaron Rodgers. Jacksonville, even at 2-2, they're the one team that even though they're in a weak division, they have not looked good.
No.
Outside of week 1 against the Colts, they have not looked good. There is a scenario I actually think where the Colts could go in there and steal that division from Jacksonville at this point because Anthony Richardson, if he stays healthy, and he's already been out twice, but the Colts look like a pretty damn good football team with Shane Steichen.
And don't dismiss Houston either.
They're not there yet. They're not there. They need about 1 more year. To me, Houston needs more piece defensively. Indy has the piece defensively. They have Kenny Moore. They have Shaq Leonard. They have DeForest Buckner. Houston doesn't really have a notable name on defense, really, outside of maybe Derek Stingley Jr., who hasn't been great. Obviously, the young corner they drafted out of LSU a couple years ago. So it's not really a surprise. It's a matter of we all forget that these teams play each other. So the records are going to be a little bit down. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers to the Jets, losing him is what kind of made the AFC look not great. But the bottom line is like Pittsburgh still has 2 wins. The Browns have 2 wins. Tennessee, who I don't love, has 2 wins. New England's 1-3. They've looked terrible, and yet they could be 3-1 at the same time. So there's a lot.
If Josh McDaniels could actually count, the Raiders might be better.
Yeah, and I mean there's a lot going on, and in the NFC, there's just not enough star quarterbacks. I like Jared Goff, but I think the Lions have a ceiling. I like Geno Smith. I think him and Seattle have a ceiling. You guys all talk about Brock Purdy. I think eventually Brock Purdy's going to turn into a pumpkin. I'm still not sold on Brock Purdy, and I'll never be sold on Brock Purdy until he actually beats a good team without kicking field goals. We'll see how they do this weekend against Dallas. I still think the 2 best teams in the NFC are Philly and Dallas. I said it going into the year. I still believe it. They look like the 2 best teams, and I'm going to give my
Dallas
team,
does not. No, they don't.
Okay, they lost to Arizona. I get it. Outside of that, they've blown people out by 20 straight points.
Have they really played anyone, though?
Well, they play the Giants. They stink.
Exactly.
They play the Jets with Zach Wilson, and then they played New England. So I get it. But I'll tell you what, Dallas goes in there now with confidence against San Francisco. All it takes is 1 win.
They're not going to get that win, though.
They might. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to, but they might. You're going to act like it's a foregone conclusion San Francisco's going to win. I'm not sure it's a foregone conclusion.
I mean, we've seen what's happened the last 2 times Dallas has played San Francisco.
They've been close games. They've gone down to the wire.
Yes, but who's come up with the game-winning play? Dallas or San Francisco?
Well, it's been Dallas handing it to San Francisco.
Either way, it's been San Francisco.
2 years ago, Dallas had a chance to down to the buzzer, and they decided to run a QB draw, and they don't know the clock rules. That's on Mike McCarthy. And last year, Doug made 2 key critical interceptions when Brock Purdy played like trash. I'm sorry. Purdy did not play well in that game. Their offense did not play well in that game. Their defense won them that game.
We'll get to Dallas and San Francisco more later. But here's the thing with the NFC. It's Philly, it's San Francisco, it's Dallas, it's Seattle, it's Detroit.
No, I'm sorry. I'm cutting you off. It's Philly, Dallas, San Francisco. That's it. Detroit and Seattle have ceilings. Geno Smith is not taking a team to the NFC Championship.
Yes,
He's
he
just
can.
not. No, he's not. Did you see him last night against the Giants? They put up 4, and by the way, he only put up 7 points himself. They got a pick 6, and then of course Jrue Holiday on the drive where Noah Fan got down to the 1 yard line. Kenneth Walker punched it in. Seattle did not look very good last night against the Giants.
Okay, whatever.
We see what Geno Smith is. He's a very good quarterback in Seattle and a very good scheme with limitations. That's what he is. I don't know why you're so fascinated by Geno Smith. He's still Geno Smith.
Oh, my God.
Caleb Williams right now at USC is a better quarterback than Geno Smith, and I can unequivocally say that. Drake May right now, by the way, in North Carolina, is a better quarterback than Geno Smith. You don't think if Seattle had the choice, if they were to call one of the by the way, we are about to get to this in about 5-10 minutes. You don't think one of these NFL quarterbacks with your Geno Smiths or your Baker Mayfields, because that's the level I have Geno Smith on. A guy that can win you games, not going to get you over the top, not going to get you to the NFC Championship or anything like that. You don't think, like Tampa, I would think that they would actually like to take, but Baker Mayfield's playing so well they can't do it. Remember Seattle trying to tank last year and Geno Smith told them no.
Jeez. I'm never going to convince you with the Seahawks.
No, you're never going to convince me because what has Geno Smith proven? He never won a playoff game. It took him 7 years. I've never seen anything like it. He was sitting on the bench for 7 years, Josh. 7 years as a backup and came in at the incredible. You can't even speak about it, and we'll never see it again.
Okay.
And by the way, as much as I like Jared Goff, what is my knock on Jared Goff? And you, by the way, were saying that Hayden Hooker was going to come into the middle of the season because Jared Goff's going to struggle. I love Jared Goff. He can't play in cold weather.
He just did it last week in Green Bay.
It wasn't cold in Green Bay. I'm talking about below 40 degrees. I'm talking when the weather. Have you not seen Jared Goff in November, December outside?
Okay. I mean, he already had his Green Bay game. The Minnesota game is Minnesota plays indoors.
Their big test is going to be week 14 at Chicago, and they should be tanking already. So they're not going to have to deal with weather the whole year. But what are they going to do when you have to go to potentially of Philadelphia, when you may have to go to Seattle in a rainy January game? They're not going to play well. And I like Jared Goff. I think Jared Goff can win you a playoff game or two. I like him more than Geno.
What? Detroit can run the ball with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. They're getting Jameson Williams back because the NFL changed their gambling policy and all that. They have Amon-Ra St. Brown. Sam Laporta has come into his own as a tight end.
This is where I think you struggle. I'm always looking ahead. You're looking at the now. I don't care. The Lions can win 11, 12 games. They're all good in the just like the NBA. I don't care what you do in the regular season. I know the teams that are more than likely going to be there in the postseason. And by the way, people are starting to write off Cincinnati. Don't write off Cincinnati. If Burrow comes back and he's fine, they're going to make the playoffs. Unless Burrow's out and they can't move the ball, then they're not. Okay. I mean, come on. Let's not overthink the room. What we do in week 4, we're all overthinking. We're all talking. Don't overthink the room. We know who's good. We know who's not that good. And by the way, I said this today on Brand's Word, and we're going to get to our best games NFL week 5 in 1 second. I want to finish with this. There are about, I would say, between 6 and 7 teams in the NFL we know that are really, really good. There are about 6 or 7 that we know are probably pretty bad. The rest, that's what, 16, 18 teams? They're all right in the middle. 8 to 10 wins. That's it. That's the NFL. Every single year.
Hey.
It's not, Josh. You know it's true.
Do I? Do I, though?
All right, let's move on. Best games for the NFL, Week 5. I am going to kick this thing off. Now, I'll tell you what, this week was actually a very challenging week to do this because there wasn't that many great games on the docket this week. But here we go. For week number 5, I have the Ravens and the Steelers going down in Pittsburgh. I also have the Eagles and the Rams going down in Los Angeles. Of course, Cowboys Niners, Sunday night football. And for the last two, going to be a very interesting game. There's some bad 1 o'clock games this week, in my opinion, but there's one in London. Of course, Bills and Jags that I'm really looking forward to. And then last game, I'll be honest with you, it was kind of hard to pick. It was like Chiefs Vikings, and I'm not really looking forward to that game. So, you know what? I'm actually going to say, believe it or not, because I think it could be a fascinating game, New Orleans at New England.
Okay. All right. Here I go. Number 1, I'm ranking these. Number 1, easily, Sunday night football in the Bay Area. Dallas Cowboys at San Francisco. Here you go, Dallas. Here's your first real test of the season. Prove you're not a paper tiger. Prove that you are a legit contender.
What the hell is a paper tiger?
Somebody who, it's a team that starts off really strong, but you know they're not really good. Like Carolina.
Also like Seattle. So you know they're not very good.
Do you remember a couple years ago when Carolina started the season undefeated, but everybody's like, okay, they're not. It's because they're playing a weak schedule and all that.
And it was Dallas a couple years ago when they played the 3 worst teams in football the first 3 weeks. Yeah.
Correct. Yes. So it's that idea. All right. So number 2, it's my favorite rivalry in the NFL right now. Baltimore Ravens, Pittsburgh Steelers, AFC North showdown in the Steel City. Lamar Jackson, TJ Watt, Mark Andrews, Rashad Bateman, Odell Beckham Jr. It's going to be a great game. Okay, number 3, I am going to the AFC South, the heartland of America, Indianapolis. The 2-2 Tennessee Titans head to Lucas Oil Field to take on the 2-2 Indianapolis Colts. The Titans recently have dominated the Colts overall. Can Anthony Richardson turn things around? Or what has Tennessee actually gotten back on track after what they did last week against Cincinnati? All right, number 4, we're heading from Indianapolis down to the ATL, Hotlanta, Houston Texans, Atlanta Falcons. The Texans, they're coming off of a big win over the Pittsburgh Steelers. J.J. Watt gained his number, retired in the Texans Ring of Honor. C.J. Stroud looks like the real deal. I'm not changing my opinion. The Texans absolutely nailed it with this draft pick. Meanwhile, you have the Falcons. They've got good skill position players, but Desmond Ridder is just blah. So this is going to be a very interesting stylistic matchup because you know the Falcons, they want to run the ball with Bijan Robinson and some of their other running backs.
Do they? Arthur Smith, please use him more for my fantasy team. I don't know. Sometimes he disappears. Go on.
And Tyler Algier, there we go. And then number 5, I am going to go to L.A., Hollywood. Philadelphia Eagles, 4-0. Los Angeles Rams, 2-2. This was the game a few years ago where Carson Wentz got injured and probably lost his MVP. But then Nick Foles came in, and we all know what happened from there. Eagles would go on to win the Super Bowl. But the Rams, Matthew Stafford, maybe he's finding his groove again. They're going to get Cooper Kupp back maybe this week. And Puka Nakua, he had the game-winning catch for the Rams last week.
He's a star. He's basically Cooper Kupp 2.0 at this point. I need to say this. How do you not have Jacksonville and Buffalo on your list?
That's my honorable mention.
Well, to me, that's a top 3 game. There's not that many games this weekend. This is a bad slate. It's not great, and we say that it always turns into a great week. But to me, this is very fascinating. I have no idea how Jacksonville is going to play. We've never seen a team play in London 2 straight weeks. We don't know if they're going to react good to that. We don't know if they're going to react poorly to that. We need to see how Jacksonville reacts against one of the best offense and defenses, one of the best teams in general in the NFL. So I would personally replace that game with Houston and Atlanta. Desmond Ritter's not it. He's not it. I'm sorry. And Vegas had Atlanta spread at 8.5. I said take the under. I didn't believe in Desmond Ritter. They like Jonnu Smith more than Kyle Pitts. Who knew? They can't get Drake London the ball. They're refusing to get Bijan Robinson all the touches at running backs. And then they put in Algier. He gets started in the backfield because everybody knows it's going right to Algier. My New England, New Orleans pick was kind of like your Tennessee Indy pick, in my opinion. The 5th game this week was really hard to find. There's not a ton of great games. Like I said, I'm just fascinated to see what happens in New England because one of my bold predictions this year in the NFL was that this is going to be Bill Belichick's last year of coaching in New England. And if they lose to New Orleans, they cannot move the ball. They are not a very good team. I don't care what people say about their defense. New Orleans is not very good. If they lose, regardless of who's the Saints quarterback, and Mac Jones plays terrible again, at some point, Bill, there's this quarterback down the road at USC who's really good. If you want to get your Tom Brady quarterback, just tank and go get the kid. Let's give up this year. Mac Jones is not the answer. We know this. And give GM and give drafting to somebody else and give the kids some freaking skill position players because New England doesn't know how to draft a skill position player in 20 years. They know how to draft guards and kickers and punters.
Yeah. I think the worst game of the week is going to be Giants-Dolphins because holy crap, the Dolphins might put up 70 points again.
I don't think they're going to put up 70 points again. I think they'll put up about 30. A little bit of a hot take. I do not like Kansas City, Minnesota. I know it's a big game. I know Jim Nantz, Tony Romo are going to be there. It's just I don't think Minnesota can stop Kansas City.
Yeah, but here's the thing. And we were just talking about AFC and who's legit and has the AFC lived up to the offseason hype. I don't trust Kansas City. I don't.
Wait, you don't trust Kansas City?
I know they have Patrick Mahomes, but other than Travis Kelce, who else do they have at skill position? Sky Moore?
And listen, I've been saying the same thing for 2 years, but you know what? When Kelce's out there, does it matter?
Yes.
Does it matter? Kansas City always just gets it right. They're going to score points.
Here's the
Kelce being out changes their offense. Him being in there makes their offense a lot more lethal. If he's in there, it doesn't matter who their receivers are.
The thing is, yes, I know the Chiefs won the Super Bowl last year after trading Tyreek Hill. I get it. But along with Travis Kelce, they had Juju Smith-Schuster. He was a very good complementary wide receiver.
In that Andy Reid scheme where they actually motioned him and got him open. Not like here in New England where he can't separate from a third-string corner.
Right. And here's the problem. Kansas City this season does not have that complimentary wide receiver to Travis Kelce.
They don't.
Right now, if I'm looking at the AFC, I would put Buffalo ahead of them.
Oh, no. Josh.
I would put Baltimore ahead of them.
Oh, God. You're making the same mistake You are making the same mistake every single pundit out there will do. Kansas City's going to get it. I understand your point, but until somebody knocks them off, which, by the way, the college team knocking off was my freaking team, and we had them in the Super Bowl, whatever that stupid Odin call they called on James Bradbury. You want me to get worked up again? I'll do it again. Get out of the work Frank call. I'll see the history of freaking football. That is out close because you need a pass rush. Buffalo is too inconsistent to hang in there with Kansas City. We still cannot trust, and I love Josh Allen. Is he going to turn into a wild pony again? We don't know. I have to wait and see. We can't trust Miami. Tua is never healthy. The team that we should trust the most is the team that matches up best with Kansas City, and they at this point may not even make the playoffs, depending on if their quarterback is healthy or not. It's Cincinnati. That's the only legitimate number one contender to Kansas City right now until somebody says otherwise.
I think Lamar Jackson's going to have something to say about that.
Well, are we sure Lamar's going to be healthy? And by the way, are we sure they're going to be able to put up enough points to match up with Kansas City? Because I love the Ravens, but I don't think they match up well with Kansas City.
Go back and watch Week 2, Ravens-Bengals. Ravens get the first drive of the game. They took they took like half the quarter on their first possession.
Kansas City's defense is better than Cincinnati's, and this is September. We're talking January football.
Baltimore can take the air out of the ball. I don't think Kansas City is going to have the number one seed in the AFC this season. I do not.
I'm going to leave the conversation there. We got to move on to college football. We talked about this almost all show. How many talented quarterbacks are this year in college football? Some very fascinating matchups, that we've gotten over the last couple of weeks. Is this the best college football season we've seen in years? I would say not yet. I think it has the potential to be. I think that we need to wait and see, how these teams are going to match up against each other, how Texas is going to look later in the season, how Michigan is going to look later in the season when they play somebody legitimate. Georgia almost got beat by Auburn last week. They look certainly beatable this year. So there's a lot of talent out there. I think it's very good for the sport of college football that we have good teams out west. We have good teams in the Midwest. We have good teams down south. We don't have, Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma, and Ohio State seemingly every year in the college football playoff. We could have 2 to 3 new teams potentially in the playoff this year. I think USC is certainly destined. The winner of Michigan, Ohio State is probably going to get in unless somebody's, falls at that point. And I imagine Georgia, more than likely, just because of how talented they are probably going to get in. So we're probably looking at one spot. And again, whether that goes to Ohio State, whether it goes to Penn State, whether it goes to Oregon, whether it goes to Washington, I think that's the fun that we have now is we have more teams that are more viable for the 4th number spot in that college football playoff. And I'll say this, if somehow, some way, they do not lose a game the rest of the way, and I think you know who I'm talking about, Josh, Alabama. If they get in there and they play Georgia in the SEC championship game and they can beat them, and let's say Georgia's undefeated and Bama has one loss and Bama wins, Bama's going to get in. So we may sit here right now and say, we're going to probably have different teams. We don't know that yet. There's still a lot of football to be played, but it's been a fun, entertaining season just because of the quality of quarterbacks that we have.
Yes, which you're talking about Ohio State. Ohio State's about to enter a really tricky 4-game stretch. This weekend, they host Maryland.
They will kill them at home.
Okay.
At home, they'll kill them.
Okay. Then next week, they're at Purdue.
They'll kill them.
Purdue has upset them before.
In the past with Urban Meyer and not as much of a talented Ohio State team. Knowing that Penn State is on the horizon, they'll beat Purdue.
Okay. You say after that, they have Penn State at home.
That's the tricky game. That's the game.
And then the week after that, the Buckeyes have to go to Madison, Wisconsin.
And that's the tricky game. Those two right there, because playing in Wisconsin is hard. It's not as hard as playing in Purdue. I'm sorry, Purdue's not that good. Unless Ohio State just looks at Penn State, they'll take care of Purdue. It is Penn State at home, which I know you're not going to like this. I probably favor Ohio State just because it is in Columbus. If it was in Penn State's home up there at Whiteout, I'd probably take Penn State. The tricky game, and Wisconsin's not very good, but Wisconsin always plays Ohio State well. That is a spot where you got Michigan State coming up in the next couple of weeks at home, and then you have Michigan after that. That's the game, in my opinion, to potentially look out for.
Okay, but you talked about Washington, you talked about Oregon. That's going to be a huge game when they play each other on October 14th up in Seattle. Washington hosts Oregon. You also got USC in there. Texas is definitely up there. You could make an argument that because of their win in Tuscaloosa against Alabama, Texas should be number one ahead of Georgia.
You absolutely can. And it's why, by the way, I've been against this college football playoff, as I said a couple of weeks ago here on Championship Rings, expanding to 12 teams, because it would make the Texas-Alabama game almost meaningless, right? I mean, if we had a 12-team playoff like we're going to next year, who cares? Texas wins, they're still going to be in. Bama loses, they might still get in. They're going to sneak into that 12th spot. Now it's like you lose one game, like the Ohio State-Michigan game. We all know it's coming. We all know it's going to be a situation where it's 2 versus 3 or 2 versus 4 or something like that. We all know the loser's probably going to be out.
Yeah. I mean, you could make an argument Washington should be number one in the country with how they've looked with Michael Penix at quarterback.
That kid is phenomenal. By the way, he's already better than Geno Smith, but what the hell do I know?
We're not talking about that, but still, here's what I'll do. While I don't agree, I understand your argument and I will entertain it. Is that fair? Cool.
Entertain what? What argument?
Anyway, I'm just gonna ignore that comment. Anyway, so yes, you have USC, you've got Washington, Oregon. What conference are they coming to? Oh yeah, the Big Ten. I can't wait for all of them to join the Big Ten.
No more cupcake schedule in September, hopefully.
I can't wait. With the day I found out Oregon and Washington were joining the Big Ten, I went crazy. I was so freaking excited. Think about some of those matchups we're going to get. Washington, Wisconsin, Washington against Michigan, Washington against Penn State, Washington against Ohio State, USC, Wisconsin, USC, Michigan, USC, Penn State, USC, Ohio State. You get my point. I can't wait for those three teams to join the Big Ten. That's nothing against UCLA, but right now, I can't definitively say Georgia is the number one team in the country. I know they're the back-to-back national champions. I get it. But I can't say that they're definitively right now they're the number one team. And one team you forgot to mention, they went into Death Valley and came out with the win on the road in overtime, led by quarterback Devin Travis and head coach Mike Norvell, those Florida State Seminoles.
Florida State. I don't think they're very good. I don't think they're very good.
The Florida State Seminoles are legit. You're making a mistake by dismissing them.
There's no way to me they're going to finish a top 4 team in the country.
Okay. Considering that you have Washington, Oregon, USC, Penn State, Georgia, Texas, Ohio State, Michigan, I understand that.
So they're irrelevant. I mean, that's the way I look at it. I'm not the biggest fan of college football, but to me, we have 8 teams fighting for 4 spots. The rest of them, who cares? I don't care about bowl games. I may be the only person in the world, for example, if your Penn State Nifty Lions this year, which I do think have a great chance to make the college football playoff, but they're going to have to knock off Ohio State and Michigan. If they can do that. But if they don't make the playoff, we're going to go to the Peach Bowl. You know what I'm saying? Who gives a freaking damn about the Peach Bowl? Rest all your good players. get to the draft. You're just getting money for the school. I don't give a damn about bowl season and the bowl games. They don't mean anything. They don't count for anything. All they are money for the school and for the first round picks to get injured if they play. I'm sorry. It's what's wrong about college football. And they're finally starting to fix it. The one good thing about the 12-team playoff will be we're going to actually have postseason games that matter. Yeah, it may diminish the regular season, but guess what? You know what those ratings are going to be like in the playoffs in December? They're going to be NFL game ratings. They're going to dominate the NBA in-season tournament, which the NBA is trying to desperately get relevant for to do that because they know it's coming. That's why they did it, because the football in general is dominating this country.
Oh, for sure. Football has always I mean, I get it. For a while, baseball was America's national pastime. Not anymore.
It's not anymore. Well, speaking of baseball, we got to jump. We're going to do this very quickly. We don't talk about baseball on this show. Neither me or Josh are baseball analytical people. But the MLB postseason did start, and the World Series is going to take place at the end of this month. So we're going to make our World Series predictions real quick before we get to some huge wrestling news that broke over the past week. So, Josh, you told me before the show, be careful putting this topic in here because I know what may come about it. Because I know you're going to go off on me when I make my World Series pick.
Don't you dare say it.
My World Series pick, ladies and gentlemen, representing the American League, the team that has gone to what will be 8 straight ALCS at least. And what would this be? The 6th World Series because nobody can stop them. I don't know. They may have cheated one year, but regardless, they're done cheating. They're still winning. The Houston Astros. You can't be mad at greatness. You can be mad about the 2017 championship. You can be mad about the 2018 Red Sox all you want. We're 5 years past that. They're still the team to beat, in my opinion. I don't care what the O's record is. Let's see them play very good postseason baseball outside of Baltimore, a spot they've never been in. Give me the Houston Astros, and I think this is the year the best team in the National League actually gets back to the World Series. It will not be a fluke. The Atlanta Braves. We will have a rematch of the 2021 World Series. This time, Houston comes on top, and the Houston Astros will be your back-to-back in Game 6 defending World Series champions.
Absolutely not. The Astros only have
on that?
The Astros only have one World Series championship, and that was last year. I do not count 2017. Rob Manfred let them get off easy. He should have taken away the World Series championship from them that season.
He should have, but they won it last year, is my point. They're a very good team still.
Jose Altuve should have been suspended for all of 2018. George Springer should have been suspended for all of 2018. And Carlos Correa should have been suspended for all of 2018.
Here's the problem with it, though, Josh. Baseball is the sport of cheating.
Rob Manfred let the Astros get off way too easily in 2017. That's why I will always call them the Houston Asterisks. I don't care.
Very professional of you.
I am
very professional of you.
Sorry, this is the fandom part of me. I'm calling them the Houston Asterisks. Anyway, as for my World Series pick, no way am I picking Houston. Absolutely not.
They've only made the 8 straight ALCS. What do I know? All right, who's your pick?
You don't trust the Baltimore Orioles?
No.
I do. But they're not the team I'm picking. Because there's a team north of the border with Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
The freaking Blue Jays?
Yeah. Although I think they lost to the Minnesota Twins.
They're if they lose tomorrow, you do realize they're losing right now to Minnesota in the 8th.
Yes.
If they lose tomorrow, they're gone.
You know what? Fine. I will go with the Milwaukee Brewers out of the National League. I
like that pick. I
like the Brewers. Yelich, Carlos Santana, Corbin Burns. I know they don't have Brandon Woodruff for the wild card series, but they should still take care of Arizona anyway. I like their bullpen. Devin Williams is healthy this time around, and he didn't like punch a wall or anything. So, and I like that the Brewers are a very well-rounded team. So I'm going to go with the Brewers out of the National League. And you know what? I'm going with the Orioles out of the American League. It's good.
Who's your winner?
Brewers, Orioles in the 2023 World Series. And the Green Bay Packers won the World Super Bowl back in 2010. The Milwaukee Bucks won the NBA Finals in 2021. In 2023, the Milwaukee Brewers are taking home the World Series. And your World Series MVP, Christian Yelich.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm not going to make a World Series MVP on my side. Listen, I think we can both be right. I think we can both be wrong. It's a great thing about the MLB playoffs is it is the most unpredictable of the playoffs. It goes the most fast. We know you need great starting pitching. We know you need great bullpen help. We know you need timely hitting. We'll see what happens. All right, we got about 10 minutes left in this show. We are going a little bit over the hour today because there's so much packed in. There were 2 huge signings in professional wrestling this week. One of them Josh knows extremely well. One of them I know extremely well. One of them, went to some place and another went to another place. Let's start off with the female move because AEW former wrestler Jade Cargill is WWE signing a huge contract with World Wrestling Entertainment. She reportedly is going to be a part of the Monday Night Raw brand. Mr. Ungar, as an avid watcher of AEW, informed me from what I hear is a fascinating young lady. And how do you think she's going to do in the E?
It depends on how they use her because she has all the talent in the world. But the problem with her in AEW is that she never got any legitimate stories or anybody that was like a true challenger to face her when she was going on her undefeated run as the TBS champion. So I could never really get fully invested into her. But she's got all the talent in the world. I love her finishing move, the Jaded. If Triple H can use her right, she's going to be really good in WWE.
No, this next one.
Here we go.
Broke my heart. Before we get into it,
on this day, I see clearly now.
Give me some time. Let me explain to everybody. Okay?
Woo!
May 9th, 2007 is a Friday night. My dad and my brother are sitting there watching wrestling. It's Friday Night SmackDown. It is a steel cage match for the World Heavyweight Championship between the Dead Man, The Undertaker, and the Animal, Dave Batista. That match ends in a draw. This big guy comes up. His name is Mark Henry. He destroys The Undertaker, leaves him laying dead in the middle of the ring. Next thing you know, all of a sudden you are dun, 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 and this guy with big, long, wavy, goldish blonde hair carrying a huge, large black briefcase comes to the ring. Michael Cole and JBL are screaming on counter about how a sick piranha is going to steal the World Heavyweight Championship. And he goes for the cover, and he wins the World Heavyweight Championship, and he holds that big gold belt above his head. And I said, that's my favorite wrestler. What's his name? His name is, of course, Edge. And then I'm going to take in, I'm sorry if this takes more than 5 minutes. I gotta tell the whole story because I think it'll put a lot of context into this. I'm taking you to April 11th, 2011. It's the second Raw after WrestleMania 27, the night where the 11-year-old me bawled his eyes out when Edge was forced to retire as the World Heavyweight Champion. Fast forward 9 years, January 26, 2020, right before COVID, Edge makes return at the Royal Rumble, and I cry almost harder that night than I did in 2011. My favorite wrestler in the whole world is back. He's in the company he started with. He's going to finish his career on his own terms. He had a magical run for 3 years. Then he has the match in Toronto, a great match with Sheamus. It's a perfect send-off for Edge to end his career. And then I keep hearing the rumors back and forth, back and forth. Edge is probably going to All Elite Wrestling. And I said, no, that can't be. He can't go. He's a dirty lifer. He ain't going to go to that pissant company. He ain't going to go to that company signed by Tony Khan. He ain't going to go to that company that averaged 300 freaking thousand viewers on AEW Collision. And then Adam Copeland, who I will still call Edge, is All Elite. So,
yes, he is.
You're going to ask me, am I watching Dynamite? Am I watching Collision? I'm watching the Adam Copeland Edge, whatever you want to call him. I will always call him Edge no matter what. I'm watching his segments, whether I tape it on DVR, whether I watch it on YouTube. I ain't watching full episodes of Dynamite and Collision. Are you kidding me? Absolutely not. You ain't getting me back into the product. No way, Mr. Unger. You thought for just a second I was going to turn into an AEW fan. And let me explain to you why. It goes back to the theory I told you about maybe a year ago or so. There is way too much freaking wrestling on nowadays. We have Raw Monday nights. We have Dynamite Wednesday nights. You have SmackDown Friday, Rampage Friday, Collision Saturday, WWE Premium Live Event Saturday, AEW Pay-Per-View Sunday, potential NXT Pay-Per-View, NXT on Tuesday. Like, you cannot sanely watch with all these sports going on, all wrestling all the time. I'm still a WWE fan. I am still an Edge fan. I will check in on AEW occasionally, like I always do when Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson wrestles. I like checking him out. But I will say this. I respect the decision that Edge made. I understand why he wanted to go to AEW and his career with his best friend, Christian. And I truly believe, and I do mean this, Tony Khan actually did right. And Edge is the best signing, besides Bryan Danielson, AEW has ever made. Edge will bring eyes to the product. Edge will be a leader in that locker room. He will be the guy CM Punk was supposed to be. I don't know by television ratings, by metrics, how much he's going to draw. I don't think he's going to be that big of a TV draw. I don't think it's going to be that big of a difference in the ratings. But I do think it's going to bring in a huge morale boost to AEW. As you know, the last year has been completely turbulent.
Yes, it has. And on this day, I see clearly now. You think you know me. You have no idea. My friend Chris and I were down in my man cave watching Wrestle Dream on Sunday night, which it was a fantastic pay-per-view, by the way. There was only one bad match on the card, which was Eddie Kingston versus Shibata for the New Japan Strong and the Ring of Honor World Championships, but whatever. So Christian Cage beats Darby Allin for the TNT Championship in the main event. Nick Wayne turns heel, and Christian Cage is about to deliver the concerto to Sting. Lights go out. On the Titantron, it says, our special feature presentation. And you just see this guy pull up to a sports car. And I did not notice this before. On the road as he's driving, it actually said rated R. I completely missed that originally. And then I hear it. You think you know me. Chris and I went absolutely nuts. We lost our damn minds because the rated R superstar, which he can use that nickname because WWE did not renew the trademark. Looking back, probably a dumb decision by them. But Adam Copeland is all elite. Think about the matches we can get. Adam Copeland versus Will Ospreay. Adam Copeland versus Kenny Omega. Adam Copeland versus MJF. We can do Adam Copeland versus Swerve Strickland. Adam Copeland versus Christian Cage. You know that's the first match they're going to do at Full Gear probably for the TNT Championship. I could keep going. There are so many good wrestlers that you want to see Adam Copeland face in AEW. And I, as an AEW fan, I couldn't be more excited about it. Like, I try to watch every episode of Dynamite and Collision. And my God, this is going to be amazing. The way they brought him in, it was perfect. I wouldn't have changed it. I cannot be more excited. Here's the thing, though. In terms of WWE, it's been good. It's been better recently. So I'll give WWE that. Am I a bigger AEW fan? Yes, but I'm not dismissing WWE. Like, I'm still watching Raw. I'm still watching SmackDown. I'm going to watch Fastlane on Saturday, even though Fastlane right now looks like a B- show on paper. Some of the matches, I'm like, okay, that sounds interesting. Others, I'm just like, why? You know.
I got a quick question for you. How can you watch all that wrestling content with all the football content?
I know it's, I make it work.
Like we have lives, Josh.
I know. I'm not able to watch every single episode, obviously. Like, I wasn't able to watch All Out over Labor Day weekend because that was the same weekend as Sydney and Ben's wedding.
Yeah.
So I wasn't able to watch Collision. Oh, well, I went back and I'm able to watch it on demand, or I DVR them or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, you can do that to a certain extent. You know, there's some nights where you're not able to see it, but I just think with all the football, with all the basketball, it's going to be so hard to keep up with everything, which is why I have made the ultimate decision to DVR Dynamite and Collision, find Adam Copeland segments, watch them, and that's my extent of my AEW experience.
You know what? Even though you're never going to convert to AEW, which I understand, and I'm totally respect that. I'm not going to come on here and say you need to become an AEW fan or all this and that. I respect your opinion, but the fact that you're willing to watch it, at least the Adam Copeland parts, that's okay.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, I'm not gonna not watch my favorite wrestler. Like,
right? I get that.
I mean, that's like I said. I mean, the thing I'm most sad about is he's not going to be in the new WWE 2K video game.
Yeah. But I do think WWE and AEW are both in good spots right now. You know, wrestling's never been better.
No, it was better in the 90s. It hasn't been better since we've been alive. But the 90s were an insane time. It was beating out Monday Night Football.
Sure, but you get what I'm saying, though.
In a way, yes. I'll tell you what. I know we're looking ahead a little bit, but you know what I'm looking at next?
What?
You know where Survivor Series is?
Boston?
Chicago.
No.
And you know where I'm going with this.
Yep.
Is it possible? There have been people pointing out on the internet, they have been doing a lot of CM Punk references on Raw lately, specifically in Seth Rollins' promos. Rollins Punk WrestleMania 40.
It would be an interesting thing to see CM Punk back in WWE. It sounds like Triple H and him have buried
the fences. It sounds like, by the way, Punk wanted to go back to WWE last year, and Tony Khan wouldn't let him out of his contract, which who would have thought?
Yeah. That I do agree with you, with your overall statement. Adam Copeland, I think, is going to be a lot better for the locker room with AEW.
I think he's going to be great for AEW. I am actually happy for those wrestlers, and I'm happy for him. And I truly believe him when he said this. I truly believe it was a very hard decision. I actually think he thought in the back of his head he could have retired in WWE. But if Christian was still in WWE, he would not be doing this. No. This move was all about working with Christian. And obviously, as you mentioned, there's other dream matches he can get into. But if freaking Vince McMahon decided to re-sign Christian in 2021 to the thing he was washed, this would have never happened.
No, you're 100% right. There's a lot of pieces that had to be put in the right spot for this to happen. But, think about what we've talked about tonight. The sports world is on fire right now. Not to mention, we have the freaking WNBA finals starting on Sunday, which I know nobody else cares about, so I'm not going to get into it. But we have the NHL season starting up next week. The NBA season is on the horizon. We're in the midst of the Major League Baseball playoffs. The NFL is hitting its middle ground, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, they say November or March is the best sports month of the year. I don't know. October's turned into a pretty crazy sports month.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
With that, though, we have to wrap it up for today. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching this hour and 20-minute version of Championship Brains. We're sorry we weren't with you last week. We'll be back with you next week. Brandon, Lewis, Josh Ungar. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure to like us on Facebook. Make sure to go to that Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Give us a follow. Make sure to go to Instagram. We will be here every Tuesday night. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next Tuesday, bringing down all things in the sports world. And peace.
A salute to you.